This is how you actively shape your self-development. You get to have an internal negotiation to yourself. Reading this list makes you remember the old version of you who once wrote it down, and that old version of you felt really excited about these things. We regularly create a to-do list sa groceries or our monthly payables or yung mga must-watch films sa Netflix, even on the action plan of some of the projects that we wanted to do. We needed a point of reference, yung document na yon, because we might forget the things that we're supposed to do for the next 24 hours. The human mind, despite its amazing capacity, it's not really the most reliable machine to remember stuff. So why not do the same discipline of listing down the things we needed to do, but instead of for a day, why not do it for the entire year? Can you honestly say that you remember all of the things, from small to the big ones, that you set yourself out to do? Why not make a to-do list for your life? Well, to be totally honest, itong sinasabi ko, a yearly to-do list is not a revolutionary idea. Some people already do it, but what I wanted to emphasize here is the thought process that comes along with it. Paano ba tumatakbo yung isip natin if we're always creating a to-do list every year? The to-do list or bucket list is similar to life goals or dream boards or law of attraction or yung manifestation statements. And valid and important as they are, we have to admit that the latter terms tend to sound broad or vague. They have to sound so glorious to the point na baka na-overwhelm tayo and we don't know how to digest them properly. And I'm not saying na kailangan mo bitawan itong mga life goals or dream boards na to. They can simultaneously work with your life to-do list. But what's exclusive with this yearly to-do list that I'm talking about is, practically speaking, it's very easy to do. Just have to sit down and think about what you wanted to do for the entire year. I developed this practice of mine over the years, and that's why I have a lot of planners. I managed to compile different notebooks and journals, and most of them I was able to keep. Every January, I always make sure I get myself one. But the first page always has this special role. This is where I write my to-do list for that year. The things you want to get, the things you want to do, and the things you want to be. People don't really see how critical a written and well thought out action item in your to-do list is. So I know what you might be thinking. How can something so basic be my recommended action to get our life together? Well, instead of seeing an action item as just a singular thing to be ticked off or to be crossed out, try to view it under a continuum or a documentation of your growth. So it's not really just because what you wrote is an important thing to do, but in relation to what you wanted in the past and what you will plan in the near future, that very item in your to-do list is a crucial element in your story of self-development. But again, this is an annual life to-do list, not your daily action items like drinking water or getting your food delivery. It's as simple as what you want to do with your life with this given year. I have a practical way of explaining this. There are 4 key points that you should consider once you want to create your to-do list. Every action item should fulfill these 4 things. 1, it should be specific. 2, it should excite you. 3, it should realistically be executable within a year in terms of your capacities. And lastly is, it should start with a verb or an action word. It's as simple as that. Note that you don't have to overthink this. Just allocate an alone time where you can have your thoughts for yourself. And what's important in this process is you have to write something, anything down. This can be a long or short list. It's all up to you. You don't have to punish yourself na pag hindi mo nagawa yung mga bagay na to, it means that you are a disappointment. No. I'll explain later what you're going to do when that happens, when the items on your to-do list were not fully accomplished after the year ends. But of course, if you're not genuinely intending to do them in a year, don't try to fool yourself na ang dami mong sinusulat pero wala ka naman talagang planong gawin yon or gusto mo lang pamparami ng list. You kind of miss the point if you do that. You should feel excited on the act itself. Even the thought of writing them down kind of gives you this energy inside. So, number 1, sometimes being specific means just adding one extra word or having that nuance, or breaking down one big action item into baby steps. For example, back in January of 2020, I wrote on my planner, perform a spoken word. But medyo broad or very general yung goal na yon. So what I added there is in public. Perform a spoken word in public. That's kind of new to me. That's kind of exciting for me. Also, instead of saying buy a house, I wrote there start a property investment. Kasi buying a house could be very overwhelming. Kailangan fully paid na ba to? Diba? Number two, writing something that excites you is pretty subjective. But that's the point. This is your to-do list, and that's why you have to have an alone time for this, because it takes a lot of introspection para maisip mo kung ano ba yung mga nagpapasaya sa'yo. It usually is something that's totally new or has a certain level of novelty into it. Number three is all about what you're capable of doing, or is most likely something that you will be able to do within a year. We've all heard that being time-bound with our goals helps you visualize and make it more realistic for you to accomplish these things. So, look at the items you've written and then assess your current capabilities, whether it be for physical or financial or your mental skills. Can you really do that within a year? Or, if you plan to build on that capacity with this year, kaya mo ba talaga siya ma-accomplish, yung training or yung pag-iipon for that specific year? The last one, number 4, is pretty simple. Write your to-do list where the action word or the verb is at the beginning. This is a way to convince yourself or try to order yourself na you need to do this. Every time you read these action items, makikita mo na parang inuutusan mo sarili mo or parang pinupush mo sarili mo, hey, you need to act on this. So it's already a call to action. The problem kasi with if you just write new phone or if you just write yoga, it's not really clear what you wanted to do with that. There's no call to action. And I believe that if you put an action word in there, you subconsciously tell your mind that it should be something that we should act upon on. We should put the effort and action to those things. And you're done. Don't care too much if you might have forgotten to write an item there, or if the list is too simple or is not as amazing as what a bucket list should sound like. Hey, ang kailangan mo na alahanin, yung sinusulat mo yun, dapat na-excite ka. Every time you open your planner, the first page is something that you will always see. It serves as a constant reminder of the things that you set yourself to do for that given year. Well, if you're not a traditional planner user like me, you can post it anywhere on your phone or in your screensaver or somewhere in your wall. That's totally fine. You can have a ceremonial recap every end of the year. Like for every December, you sit down and look at the list and try to recall ano na ba yung mga nagawa mo dito sa bucket list na yun. The whole point of this is having something tangible, a solid proof that you once thought of this, you once felt excited about this. Here is the problem if you're not going to write it down or post it somewhere. You will inevitably forget them. And let's say, for example, you thought of getting a dance class before, pero hindi mo sinulat. And sometime in the near future, you get to enroll in that dance class. Yay, congrats, nagawa mo siya. But ito yung thought process. Think of the you maybe sometime in 2025, and you saw a list made by you in 2021, and you wrote there, attend dance class at meron check mark. You immediately have this feeling na, uy, pinlalo ko to and eventually nagawa ko siya. That is already an added level of satisfaction that you would have otherwise not feel if you didn't have a list. But now, put in the situation na you didn't write it down, you didn't put a check mark on there, the outcome is you completely remove the scenario from happening in the future na meron kang aha moment na, hey, I planned this and I was able to do it. That will not happen if you didn't put it on a to-do list. As I said, writing an action item on your to-do list is not to be taken as an isolated thing. It should be seen as something that's related to what you wanted to do in the past and what you once planned to do in the future. That very item in your to-do list shapes your personal growth. But what if you didn't get to do the things that you wrote on your to-do list? This is the crucial part. This is one special thing I do every December or January. I get my planner of the previous year and put it side by side to the planner of the coming year. I look back to the to-do list I made 11 months ago and maybe make some last-minute checks on the things na nagawa ko pala. And for those items na walang check marks or hindi ko siya nagawa within a year for certain reasons, I evaluate them again and look at the 4 key points that I mentioned earlier. Is this something that makes me feel excited pa rin ba? If yes, then I carry them over to the next year. I put it again on the planner on the first page for my 2021 planner. This is how you actively shape your self-development. You get to have an internal negotiation to yourself. Reading this list makes you remember the old version of you who once wrote it down and that old version of you felt really excited about these things. Will you honor your past self and carry these action items over? Because somehow those items still give you that tingling feeling inside, makes you feel alive or makes you feel excited and look forward to actually doing them. This is where a follow-through process happens. But of course, there will be items you have to let go because people change, priorities change. It may be true that the Andrew of January 2020, for some reason, was really, really excited and eager to do this. But because of circumstances, because of changes, the current you no longer strongly feels the same way. So that act of letting go is such a truthful moment for yourself, and it's such a vulnerable moment wherein you have to admit that it's part of growth. Because the problem of carrying all of the things that are left undone to the next year, and you do that year after year, you're going to end up with a list na sobrang haba na na-compile na, but those action items are things na hindi na nakaka-excite gawin, hindi na thrilling gawin para sa'yo. You just simply carry them over for the virtue of having something on your list. And the problem with such a long list is it becomes boring to you. It becomes an overwhelming thing for you having 2 pages of your to-do list. So you end up avoiding that list. Again, what's critical here is it takes a lot of introspection, some honest conversation with yourself, where you have to use a combination of real talk, motivational internal dialogue, and a kind language for yourself. This activity is such a spiritual character building opportunity. I believe this list you've made gets to reveal what kind of version you were before, your priorities, your values, interests, your visions. Because our personhood, is not just the current you, it's actually an aggregate of your past selves and the projection of the future version of you. Our character development is an active and an ongoing process, and it's not just one dimensional. So, for all of the people who are watching this, it's still January. Go ahead and make your life to do list. That's what I did. It's never too late. So, I'm Andrew B, and this is my shared thought on planning your life for this 2021. The content that I put out are most likely interrelated. Like this video, it touches on quarter life crisis. So, I made another video where in-explain ko yung spoken word piece ko. It's titled Life, Crisis Life. I made that poem in 2016, which is a very dark year for me. And I wrote some items on my to-do list, but I was not able to do some of them because life happens. How did I reconcile that? How did I come to terms with reality? What did I do about it? And how did I move on from that? It's all explained on that poem. So go check that video of explanation, or you could actually check the video of the poem itself, which is all linked on my YouTube channel. Always remember that you share your current personhood not just with friends and family that you currently have, but also to your past and future selves as well. Still a happy new year and enjoy.